Hi guys, and welcome back to the podcast. Thank you for clicking on this White Lotus episode. We are so glad to have Hajer back on the podcast to cover White Lotus Season 2 with us. We're not going to cover every episode, but we'll be back in a couple of weeks after episode 3, and then a couple of weeks after that, after episode 5, and then hopefully after the final 2 episodes, after episode 6 and episode 7. The podcast will be released immediately after the episodes finish airing on HBO on all platforms. So once the episode is finished airing on HBO, you can just check it out wherever you listen to your podcast. While you're here, please feel free to check out our other weekly coverage episodes that we've done over the last few months. We've covered House of the Dragon, Rings of Power, Industry, and Better Call Saul. But for now, please enjoy this episode. And if you haven't already, go check out Hajer's podcast, the Downtime with Hajer podcast. Hope you enjoy this episode.
And we are back again, back with a bang, back with an explosion, back with a...
You're not very good at it, are you?
I really struggle with all this intro and stuff. Anyway, back from my 3-month suspension, innit? I fought back. The revolution was not televised, but back to hosting. And yeah, this is the Popcorn for Dinner podcast. I'm joined by my good friend. Good friend or just friend?
We are good friends now. We've been on the piss together. So
Finally, actually, met on Saturday, and yeah, that's that's all I'd say about Saturday. But yeah, guys, welcome to the Popcorn for Dinner podcast. I'm joined by my good friend Hajer, host of the Downtime with Hajer podcast.
Hello, everyone. Great to be back on Popcorn for Dinner, the second best podcast in the world.
And today we're talking about the best show on TV right now.
Come on. Let's be fucking serious.
HBO's White Lotus, which is, I think we both have a lot of thoughts about the show. So, yeah, it should be a good discussion. Obviously, guys, don't forget to subscribe, rate, review.
Yes.
Also, check out our YouTube channel as well and see our faces. Maybe for this episode, but for all our earlier episodes as well. We've also spoken about Rings of Power, which is the Lord of the Rings TV show, which I have obviously watched, and which you have obviously watched as well as the Hot D Hod.
Great podcast coverage, by the way. Just want to shout out Fami and Ebube. They've done an amazing job.
Well, not shout out Fami. Shout out Ebube. I'm going to rescind that shout out to Fami because, that guy. But
you just wake up with so much hate in your heart.
Nah, he's a day 1, day 0 great friend of mine. But check out House of Dragon episodes. And we've got obviously further episodes of the White Lotus coming up as well, plus other TV shows and movies. Black Adam just came out, so be on the lookout for that. But yeah, let's get
Obiora, where's the enthusiasm? Come on.
I just mentioned Black Adam, and I think I just ruined my mood for myself.
I didn't even know what that means. Is that another DC superhero show?
That's The Rock's movie. The one he's been, just shamelessly promoting everywhere on his Instagram.
You have to, respect The Rock for his shamelessness.
It's so shameless, and apparently the movie's not good as well.
Isn't he the person who's received the most Razzies in the world or something?
Has he?
He has.
It's not J-Lo.
Well, that's my headcanon, and I'm gonna say that that's the truth.
M. Night Shyamalan as well. That's another. Oh gosh, Hajer, you're literally putting so much hate and distress in my heart right now. Let's talk about something which did he put hate in your heart as well? The White Lotus.
First of all, I think we should just talk about the first season and how we watched it.
So how did you get into this show? Because I think, how did you hear about the show? How did you get into the show? What are your thoughts on it?
So I remember I watched it in the August of 2021. I was I remember it was the summer before I moved to France, right? And I remember watching it. I remember seeing it covered on Vanity Fair's podcast. And I remember thinking, oh, what's this? And then I heard it was a mini-series, and I was like, okay, great, this is an easy watch. I'm not really watching anything. The summer is low season for things, because most of the big dramas are coming back in the autumn. So I was like, okay, cool, I'll watch it. I saw a couple familiar faces. I thought, okay, this is interesting. I love things about holidays. I like a show that's has a beautiful setting. So I was like, this is a no-brainer.
Mm-hmm.
I watched it and I really enjoyed it, but I heard a lot of people didn't, and I was like, This is not bad. This is good food.
What's wrong with them?
I know, like, this is good food. But I do think if you were looking for like super, super, super poignant analysis on the topics covered, I don't think the show did that. It was an interesting show. It got a lot of, it raised a lot of issues. I think it was really good at doing the thing that I think Get Out did, in the sense of like not so sharp satire, as not as sharp as Get Out, on like liberal white people and how that works. And I also really enjoyed the relationships that they portrayed. So no spoilers, but they're like, I think about 3 main relationships that sort of get the most sort of analysis and like go under the most, I guess the show really talks about them. I really enjoyed those. I also enjoyed the more like side dish characters. So I loved the manager of the hotel. I thought he was hilarious.
So we'll talk about hotel concierges, because I think that's kind of what this show is really, really, even this new season as well. It's kind of like, I mean, we're only an episode in, but it's very bizarre characters.
Yeah. And I also really enjoyed the person who's from Insecure. She plays Kelly in Insecure. And she sort of works as this sort of like wellness advisor in the very first season, the Black woman. And I really enjoyed her arc with that guest. I thought it was one of the best stories like in the show. And so yeah, overall, like I thought it was nice. Like I wouldn't call it like my favorite show ever, but I thought it was something fun to watch in the summer. And I was excited for the next season when I found out that my husband was going to be on the cast, Theo James.
I was about to ask if literally on my notes on it, I was like, is Theo James on the list?
Obiora always asks me if they're hot, they're on the list. Like,
and you always plead the fifth. That's the funny thing. It's kind of like, I know you more than you know yourself, Hajer. So I don't even need to hear the answer from you. But when I was watching this show, I was kind of like, what the fuck am I watching right now? This is absolutely bizarre. Like, I was trying to get the points, or trying to look for the points of what I was watching, and I didn't quite find it. So sort of the time I was like, oh, it's supposed to be like some satire on how kind of rich people always get away and all the poor people get fucked. Like, even at the end of season 1, big spoilers coming up, the Polynesian guy, forgotten his name, he goes to jail.
Yeah.
And the hotel concierge, he's literally he dies because he gets stabbed by that other Jake Lacey guy who was apparently right all the time. He was a bit of a douche. And that black lady, I mean, she got, 25k payout, but it was kind of like she was let down at the end, wasn't she? Because she had this business opportunity which was promised to her by Jennifer Coolidge's character, and it was just like, oh, I've actually thought about it, and I don't want to get her. And she was that person where like all the rich people used to tell her problems, and she always used to give like,
free
just
therapy, basically.
Free advice, solving their problems and stuff. And it was when it was time for her to, talk to one of them, the rich people weren't really interested. So there was that kind of dynamic.
I think one thing that the first season did well, in my opinion, maybe not to the level that I've gotten out of any other piece of media, but I think it really shows that very like parasitic relationship between people who are upper class and everyone else around them. And it's sort of like, it reminds you of the fact that like the wealth of rich people is derived from the efforts of others. It's derived from everyone around them, and it doesn't just happen. They're not just lucky. They're not just that smart or that clever. It is just the way that the world works. Like, everything that they have is built out of the work of everyone else, and how that work really just doesn't get acknowledged. And I really like the tinge of, because I don't think a lot of, I don't know, because I'm not American, but I don't think a lot of white Americans look at their relationship with Hawaii as very parasitic, but it is incredibly so. So I thought that was a good way to think about it, especially with the whole, like, indigenous people in Hawaii have, from like, I think like the past 2 years now, been saying, please, tourists, stop coming.
Yeah, there was like some water shortages or something, right?
Yeah, we actually cannot contain you guys, like, please go away. And people just ignoring that and continuing to come, like, on holiday making. And it just shows you, like, they think they're doing you a favor because, like, well, we're helping your economy or whatever. But it's still like, no, you're not, though. Like, we're still serving you at the detriment to ourselves. And even the non-Polynesian or Hawaiian characters, like the hotel concierge, who do have a bit of a leg up, I guess, is still, you see how that relationship basically just made me realize, girl, I cannot work in customer service because some people are dummies.
It's pretty shitty from experience. Well, you get some really shitty people, I'll tell you that. But like, there was even like some moments in the first season where like he didn't realize his worker was pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
Just like no one really cares about people that are under them and stuff. So I feel that was a pretty good dynamic, as you mentioned, like Parasite. I did like the whole, do I want to call it a celebration of sort of Hawaiian culture? Because normally what you see at like, Hawaii back in days,
Mm-hmm.
land on the plane, you got people with alohas dancing, and that's all you get. But I think now watching that season, it's pretty cool just sort of bringing it to media. I did think that this was going to be like a one series thing.
Oh, okay.
So we're quite surprised that the second season came out.
I mean, I thought so as well. And I mean, we'll talk about the second season. But I think the only reason they did it is because of the Emmy success. I don't think that they were planning to roll out a second season. I think the reason that they rolled out a second season was because of the Emmy success. Now, I will say the Emmy success to me seemed a bit unnecessary.
If something's supposed to be like one season, keep it one season. I watched Big Little Lies season 2.
Yeah, I feel like I will always be mad because I think they did low-key sort of ruin the show. Because if that ended at season 1, that goes down in like the pantheon. It was so good. But then season 2 and you're like...
Yeah, you guys are just, serving fans at this point. Also, I think, the acting was pretty good in season 1 as well.
Yeah, so that was the good thing. Like, the performances were all incredible. Like, I really, really enjoyed, as I said, like, so obviously I know the actress from Insecure, and I really loved to be able to see her.
That's the Issa Rae show, right?
Yeah, in a completely different way, because it's such a different role, asking so many different things. Stifler's mom is in it. She was funny. I'm not quite enjoying her in this season, though, I will not lie.
Are you not? I think she does it well, but she's so
jarring.
Strange.
She's so jarring.
And so jarring. It's just like, oh, come on, man. Just one of those people where just like, if they sat next to you on the bus, you just like, I'm gonna leave now. I'm gonna, one of those sort of people. She'll never be on the bus, but you get what I mean.
Yeah.
I feel like that Jake Lacey character, Shane Patton, I really did not like I think it's towards like the end of the season, kind of realized like, oh shit, it was actually right. He did actually book this room, but he was just so, douchey about it, and like just the way he treated Alex Dario's character.
Yeah,
that's the reason why I watched the show. Actually, once I saw like Alex Dario and Sydney Sweeney, who's actually coming on next week, I was just like, wherever they're on, I'm just gonna.
No one has ever milk merchanted like Obiora has milk merchanted in the past 5 seconds. Have some fucking shame!
Season 2.
So, I thought that also another thing that made me intrigued with this season is, I always fucking forget her name, but she's the actress in The Bold Type. I think she's amazing. Like, she's so charming on screen. Like, she's magnetic. I love watching her. So that's another reason I watched this, besides Theo James. But Theo James is the primary reason. Also, I love the south of Italy. I think it's gorgeous. So I was like, okay, we're getting some of that scenery as well. With the inclusion of, like, HBO alum, fucking Christopher Moltisanti. So I was like, okay, you know what? Like, we're getting a lot of, like, good familiar faces. I'm intrigued to see what they do. Although, I will say, I'm waiting for things to sort of establish themselves firmly. I think the first episode of the first season was more intriguing than this pilot.
Right.
I think they've sort of like, they put in characters and things for me that I was immediately like, ooh. Whereas with this one, I'm sort of like, I'm gonna see where you guys are taking this. I hope that makes sense.
Right. Because I was going to ask, nailing down not pilots, but first episodes of seasons, that you have to give, especially for an anthology series, you have to give enough, but you don't want to give too much. And if you didn't give enough, in this case, it could end up just like, there are too many holes in here. I can't really seem to sort of form a narrative in my head. And it's just, sort of waiting to see where they go. And I kind of felt the same way in the sense that, I mean, when it's actually, let me digress for a second here.
Mm-hmm.
Freaking actors and actresses, especially for like projects like this, are so lucky that they just get to go to like, the south of Italy
Mm-hmm.
or some holiday destination and just, work there. And we're stuck here in freaking United Kingdom with like shitty weather. But anyway, that's just me.
I mean, it's their job.
South of Italy, living there.
Pick a better job, babe.
But I do feel the same way though, that it's like trying to figure out like dynamics and who's who and how they relate to each other and stuff. Like for example, Theo James' character, Aubrey Plaza character as well. Like they're both of their couples, right? And trying to figure out like, all right, so I guess they were both roommates, but like how are they friends? It's sort of like in Swingers. You're like, how are these two guys friends? And how are these two guys been friends for so long?
Okay, so are we getting into the episode now, like fully driving in?
Fully.
Okay,
all the way in.
so I think one of the things that I find intriguing, but I'm not too sure how I feel, is that I'm not as interested in the relationships between these people as I was. So like in the first season, they make it very like, oh, okay, so the wife is the successful one with this family. Then you have the sort of homoerotic relationship between the daughter and her, poorer friend that she sort of brought along. Then you have the Alexander Daddario and Jake Lacey relationship, which is very, very interesting. Like,
then the mom comes along.
Yeah, then the mother comes along. I think you usually see those sorts of relationships are very intriguing to me. Like, sort of like the trophy wife and the guy who she's decided to be with, and then in the end where, she actually decides to stay in that relationship. I think those are very interesting. Whereas with this one, as much as I think Aubrey Plaza, like, I think Aubrey Plaza is like a gem. Like, I love watching her. I saw her in something like almost a year ago now. It's called My Friend Something. It's about this babe who becomes obsessed with this like influencer and just creates basically a fake life to be friends with her. And she's amazing in that. But with this one, you sort of see, so the actors' chemistry, they do a very good job at doing like, okay, we've sort of have these two couples as foils to each other. There's the ones who are very in love, very, touchy-feely. They have so much affection. And then there's Aubrey Plaza in her relationship. And she's sort of like, one thing I read about her is that, she's a hater through and through. She came out of the gate hating on these people. She said,
yeah.
And that's so funny to me. But like, I feel like, I don't know how to do this. Like, they're doing a good job at showing her insecurities by showing obviously how upset she is with this relationship. But I still feel like foundationally, like, they're still like, why are these people friends? And I think it's good that we ask that because they are also asking that, the characters themselves, like, why are we actually friends with these people? Why are we here? And I think that that's the thing that's keeping me going because I don't think it's as simple as, we're just tagging you along. You've bought this company. I think there's definitely another layer. It seems like they all want to fuck because Theo James did that weird thing, like he just seems a bit facetious.
Right.
Yeah.
He's playing it well.
Yeah, he is. And he's doing it really well. He gives off that, like, if you've ever met, like, a mischievous, like, prodigal son, like, he sort of seems like that, like, that person who's, like, successful, arrogant, but also not just completely a dickhead on the face of it. Like, he's not, like, an asshole, like, you meet someone, you're, like, completely rude and awful. Whereas, like, you get that side where it's like, but this guy clearly loves his wife.
Yeah, just the vibe they're giving off.
He clearly loves his wife. He likes to have a bit of fun. He's not as openly horrendous as, like, maybe, like, the Jake Lacey character. But I still think he will prove to be horrendous. And then I think they do a really interesting thing with the wife where she's in a similar position to Alexandra Daddario. She's just sort of like a +1, basically. Like, I'm just
like
tagging along for the ride.
When they were all sat by the table. Remember that scene where they were asking, like, what do you watch? I was like, is this an episode of the Popcorn for Dinner podcast? What's going on here? But anyway, when Aubrey Plaza went to fetch the swimming trunks and I was like, come along. And it was like, that cut to her sort of turning and she was like, this is a bit weird. Just like had that, this is strange look on my face. And something really shady could go down. And not great for me.
But I think it does a good job because like a lot of shows talk about this sort of like when you're in the presence of someone else's either emotional battle or relationship, it really makes you reconsider your own. Right. And I think sort of like based on what Aubrey Plaza's husband has recently been able to succeed at doing, he sort of had to be like sort of been thrown into this, right? There's not enough context for that, I think. I'm still very confused. Is it that he bought his company or whatever it is? But there's some business thing going on, and they've known each other since university. That's sort of the foundation of their relationship. And you have the contrast between these two different women. You know, one who says she doesn't watch the news, and then you have a similar situation with Sydney Sweeney that you had in the last season of the other one, where she's sort of half Puerto Rican. She's from, like, this, you know, she says that she's from this place. And yeah, I think it's really interesting.
Doesn't vote as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. They're doing another good job of showing, like, the different worlds people, like, occupy. But they're still very loose threads, I feel. But I think that those will sort of come to being.
With the episodes, because, like, it's all about, you know, sort of mentioning, like, first episode is just sort of doing enough, but have they done enough or close to enough? But I mean, if it all turns out to, like, you know, with time, you know, the season all turns out to be good in the whole, then I think we'll forgive them in the future.
Yeah, but I think the themes remain the same. I mean, you have the sex workers who are the locals who are introduced.
Is that what we use these days, sex workers?
I mean, you can call them prostitutes, they are. Like, I know what I was going to say. But you have the sex workers who are the locals, the same way you had the Polynesian worker who was the local. And you sort of see the way that they fit into this. Like, so it's very clearly, like, you don't belong here. They're sort of chased out of the hotel immediately. But they still need to be there to be used for like, their service, I guess. It's just interesting to see the way all this works. But I love the very first welcome scene because it's like my stepdad is Italian. That whole thing was so Italian when they're like, oh yeah, like, why did you drop your bags at Rome? Like, that's a notably horrendous airport. Like, you're not gonna get your bags. Probably just super frank and honest. And I thought that was hilarious because if you've ever met an Italian person, that is definitely how they are. They don't give a fuck.
All right, it kind of leads us to, throughout the episode, you're sort of wondering, so who is this sex worker meeting then? Like, she's definitely meeting someone. She's definitely meeting one of the main cast. She's sort of trying to guess what's going on here. Then towards the end of the episode, it's like, oh, it's obviously Michael Imperioli's character who is, obviously he's not the best, number one dad, is he? There was that phone call, which I'm guessing is his, ex-wife.
And so that's already establishing that sort of family conflict. I'm guessing as a result of he's hurt the mom, infidelity or whatever. It's probably infidelity since we see him buying, like, prostitutes. So it's probably that.
What do you think of the grandfather, F. Murray Abraham's character?
He's so, like, typical old white man. Like making so many dad jokes, like, super, like, oh my goodness, like, oh, like, I just have to talk to a beautiful, just nasty.
So they just has to flirt, didn't they? And there was that, I don't know if it's awkward or strange, but there was the conversation on the table, like, does your penis still work at the age of 80?
I thought that was very bizarre.
You got to, what they say, you need to drain the sack, don't you?
Yeah, but I think one thing they're trying to do with that family is sort of the generational thing that they do in the first season, sort of showing how that you have these three different generations of men. You have the grandfather, the father, and the son, and seeing how, what do you, like, I think a very interesting question, and I always love when shows and whatever pose it, is like, what do you actually inherit from the people that raised you? And how much of that can you actually get rid of? Like, we sort of see, the assistant of the Stifler's mom character, Jennifer Coolidge's character. Yeah, like, she has this assistant, and you sort of see that young relationship. You have the different generations. And I think that's always very interesting to see what each generation is concerned with, what each generation is worried about. I think in the first one, it's a really, really interesting one where you have, people who are exposed to wealth but don't necessarily have it. Then you have the people who are serving the wealthy, and then you have the wealthy themselves. And you have the generations in each of these categories. And I think it's just interesting to see how that will evolve. I don't know exactly what this show will say. Will it have the same thing to say about marriage as the first one? So it's interesting to see. I'm just intrigued. But my thing is, the only thing I will say is I'm just not as interested in the relationship dynamics, maybe because I don't have enough information yet, but I'm less interested in the relationships between, like, Aubrey Plaza and her husband and Theo James and his wife, Yeah,
I feel it's all going to lead to a point where, like, Aubrey Plaza character and Theo James definitely going to have sex.
Oh, they're fucking for sure.
Plus,
But my thing is it going to be a threesome situation?
Right.
Oh, sorry, a foursome. A foursome situation, an orgy? Or is it going to be...
Yeah, there was that little... I mean, to answer a question. There was a scene towards the start of the episode when they were sort of being brought to their rooms, and you saw that it's the connecting door to the rooms, and they're like, no, I don't want to. I was like, wait, why don't you want to? No, there's a character. And I was like, okay, there's definitely something going on there that's not going on later on in the season that I can't wait to find out. I actually forgot to bring up, like, on both seasons, it sort of started 1 week later.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's like a flash forward.
Yeah.
Then it begins, 1 week earlier. What do you think about that structure?
So, like, I don't mind, like, retroactive. Was it retrospective or retroactive? Whatever it is.
You got it. One of those
type of storytelling. I don't have a problem with it. I think it's great. You sort of know where things are going to end, and then you're constantly thinking, oh, who's going to be the dead one? And I think because this one, it's not just one body that's found. They tell the woman several guests are dead. That's a thing. Ooh, a bit more shocking. Like, you're like, ooh, who's going to die? But one thing I think about this season that I think isn't really particularly present on very directly in the first one is sort of how sexual it is. Like, you have the conversation right out of the bat about the grandfather having sex, you have the prostitutes, you have the couple that is, like, clearly going through some sort of sexual frustration period. You know what I mean?
Who, Jennifer Coolidge and the old guy.
Yeah. And also, but you also have the prostitute, you also have the wife, Aubrey Plaza, and her husband. You can sort of see...
Oh yeah, they weren't fucking, were they?
Yeah, like, you can see the relationship. And then you have that contrasted with the couple that can't get their hands off each other. And I think Aubrey Plaza isn't... She's still being a hater, because I do think people who are like, no one is that happy are miserable people, because some people are that happy. Like, it is possible for a couple to just love themselves and not be able to keep their hands off each other. Yes, you're just a terrible you've never loved anyone, I can tell.
Well. Not disclose on the Popcorn for Dinner podcast. Yeah, I think in terms of the whole flash forward, retrospective, how the fuck you say it, storytelling, I really like it because it sort of tells about the how did you get to this point, and it definitely shows how much of a good filmmaker you are. Because, how did we get here? You need to set up all the elements of the resulting actions which will enable us to get to this point. And it's just, because you have this sort of incomplete picture in your mind, and it's taking us through each episode on fitting the next puzzle and the next puzzle and the next puzzle. And hopefully, if you're able to tell a good story and you're able to develop the characters properly, then hopefully you should have that perfect picture. But if you don't, you end up having some, shitting with, like, vantage point or something.
I think that's a really good point. Like, I always say, one of the best sort of things I've seen with this sort of, story structure is the very first season of How to Get Away with Murder. I think they used it, like, amazingly. Sort of like, who died, all this stuff. Like, I think that very first season is perfect. And the way that the episodes are structured, you get into the mystery a bit more. You're more curious about the characters.
Develops characters as well.
You're more, like, they are able to actually make you suspect so many people. And it's not just diffused in, like, this was a misdirect way. It all leads to a better characterization or a better story arc. Mm-hmm. And I really hope that they're able to do that. I think this season is 7 episodes instead of 6 like the first, so they'll probably have more time to deal with that. But yeah, just back to my previous point, I think that Aubrey Plaza is hating, but she isn't completely wrong. I do think there's something underlying the relationship of the Theo James and his wife, and you sort of see that because she's a lot, like, similar to Alexandra Daddario in the first season, sort of like a passive character. Whereas I think with Aubrey, she has more... Like, you can see her personality more. You see she's a bit, chip on her shoulder, a bit aggressive, a bit like, oh my God, these people are so ridiculous. Like, we're so woke. Like, these people are so stupid. They live in this bubble. And I think having her have the very first scene where she's talking about, how much she loves it here. Like, how much, she's enjoying the holiday. Just having that first start, making small talk with the tourists is really interesting.
How long do you reckon Aubrey Plaza and her husband have been together for? Harper and Ethan Spiller.
I don't know.
Because the Thea James character, they have kids.
Yeah, they have children. They have 2, I believe.
They have 2 kids, so they must be together.
So I was about to say, I think they have been married for much longer.
Right, because I was sort of wondering, like, I mean, together for what, 7 years, and it's still, I mean, acting so awkward next to each other and stuff, even in bed. I'm not sure about that. What about the hotel concierge? And
so I love the woman. I think she's so like well done, like really, really on it. Very Italian. Like I can't like she's so Italian.
Honest, yes. What did she say to the old guy? I think she said like, "How did you travel all this way? You're 80 years old or something."
Yes, yeah. She's like, "You're old. Like, how are you able to do this?" I think she'll be more instrumental to the 3 men storyline than perhaps she might be to the others. The same way the first one, they were more instrumental to the Jake Lacey character because obviously he was upset about his room, and stuff. So I'm intrigued. I'm definitely intrigued. We'll see where it goes.
We will see where it goes. But
any predictions for who dies?
Any prediction? So who's going to be that dead body? Oh, actually, dead bodies, isn't it? With the capital
I'm
S?
hoping one of them is Jennifer Coolidge's husband.
Well, the person we found saw in the first episode, that was a woman, wasn't it?
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Did you see a woman, or was it just legs we saw?
I didn't notice too.
Yeah, those 2 characters, Jennifer Coolidge and her husband now.
That's one the people that I can't bear to watch their season.
I can't bear to watch, and it was like the sex
I want to skip past. I'm like, I'm not interested in this.
They showed us
all.
There was too many asses being shown in this episode.
You are the only person that would notice that.
It's like, come on. I mean, you
have
did
some
speak about
shame,
the sexual nature of this season. I was just like, yeah, this is too much ass for my liking, man. But any predictions? Who's going to die?
Who's going to die?
I reckon.
I think one of the 4 young couples as well will die.
Yeah, Ethan. I think he definitely goes, and I think one of the sex workers.
It might be Theo James that dies.
Was he in Divergence? Invergence?
That man's filmography is on 0. Like, he's just a fine man. Like, thank God for Pretty Privilege. How's he still getting jobs? Like, the Dylan O'Brien effect. Like, you're just good looking because your filmography... Chris Pine. Like, I love Chris Pine. He's fantastic.
Don't hate on my man Chris Pine, who was crying during was it the Oscars or the Emmys? He was singing that slave song. You haven't seen that?
What did you say?
Was it a slave song? No, it wasn't a slave song.
What did you say? Slave?
They were singing a beer. Anyway, carry on.
So I think just to finalize on predictions, I definitely think one of the 4 of the young couples are dying, and it could also be that one of the 3 of the family, the men, might die too. But my bet is on one of the 4 couples or 2 of the 4 young couples, and then Jennifer Coolidge or her husband die.
I definitely reckon one of the sex workers goes. Yeah, I reckon definitely one of them goes. But yeah, I guess we could end it there, guys. Please go see the White Lotus. It is, if you want to watch, something that's not a serial killer, or just want to get out to the sun, you want to feel like you're on holiday, go watch the White Lotus. Yeah, and obviously don't forget to review, rate, subscribe, share, DM us, all the good stuff, please. We have other interesting fun capital F content coming out. And yeah, thank you, Hajer, for doing this. Did I say your name right, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for coming on. Hopefully you'll be joining us the next couple of weeks again as we keep on covering this, amazing TV show. We'll definitely see you guys in 2 weeks. My name is Jibs, and we'll be joined next week by Sydney Sweeney. Talk to you guys later.
Will we be joined by Sydney Sweeney?